Startup Sense podcast. This is your host, Jonah Lupton. Once again, we're going to bring you a fantastic episode. As always, if you have any thoughts or feedback, feel free to email me directly at jonahlupton@gmail.com. I promise to reply. Today's guest is Sameer Dholakia. He is the CEO of a company called SendGrid. If you're in the email space or the marketing space, you're probably familiar with this company. They're actually based in Colorado. They had two offices in Denver and Boulder. They've now consolidated into the Denver office. That's where they have about 300 employees. And then they have another 80 or so employees spread across their London office, their Bay Area office, which I believe is Redwood City, and then another office in the LA area. Company actually went through TechStars back in, I think, 2009. So they were one of the first classes of TechStars. I'm guessing one of the more successful companies to come through that accelerator. Sameer actually spent a few years at Citrix before he was hired to be the CEO for SendGrid. Just did a nice little pre-call with him. Sounds like an awesome guy, so I'm excited to chat with him. He's got a lot of great things to share. SendGrid is actually working with 52,000 clients. They're essentially a B2B SaaS company. I'm looking at their pricing right now. It looks extremely affordable. I'm probably going to be switching over from MailChimp to SendGrid in the near future. So let's talk to Sameer. Sameer, how are you, man?
Jonah, I'm doing even better after you told me you're going to switch over. I love that. That's the best way to start a call I've ever heard. I love it. I'm doing great, man. Thank you.
I wasn't like I'd heard.
Having.
Oh, you're very welcome, man. I've heard the SendGrid name a bunch of times before. I've heard you speak on podcasts, so I knew you guys were in the email space. But until our pre-call, I wasn't really sure where you guys sat in that email space versus some of your competitors. Now I certainly have a better idea of what you guys do. So why don't you tell the audience exactly what SendGrid is doing?
Yeah, terrific. Thanks for the opportunity to do that. Email is such an important communication channel for most companies engaging with their users. And that's really at the core of our kind of mission and vision statement. It's all about how do we help our customers engage with their users and grow their businesses. Those are the two business outcomes we focus on. And so email as a channel, there are a couple different types of emails that companies send. The first are what are often referred to as transactional emails. Those are automated messages that are sent to users where there's no human interaction. So, examples are things like, when you click on a website where it says, I forgot my password. When you click on that button, there's code that sits behind that button that has to send an automated message back to the user so that you could go reset your password. Or when you hit the buy button on a e-commerce website, it's going to send you an order confirmation. Those are places where SendGrid has basically just offloaded the work from developers who build those pieces of software, those applications or websites, and said, hey, you don't want to worry about how all the complexity involved in getting that email to the inbox of the user. We'll take care of that for you, and you just pay us for however many emails we send on your behalf. So that's the core of our business and what we've been doing since our founding in 2009. We have more recently added a capability into our platform that allow our customers to send marketing emails. And those are different than the transactional emails because you do typically have a very smart human being involved, a marketer that wants to segment their lists and send out specific content, newsletters, feature announcements, product announcements, offers, promotions, etc., out to their user base to keep them very engaged with their brand and keep their brand top of mind with the user. So those are kind of the two areas that we play in as it relates to email, and we've been very fortunate to build a great business and over the course of that 8 or 9 years, we're excited about the future.
Awesome. So you've been with the company for 3 years. You joined from Citrix. What was your main reason for wanting to join the company, and why did the founders or the board decide to bring in a CEO?
I say this, Jonah, in all sincerity. I count my blessings every day that I was able to join this great company, and I fell in love with it. I often say I fell in love with SendGrid with head and heart because I'm a fairly analytical guy. classic MBA type. And I'll tell you, I ran every number and looked at every spreadsheet when looking at this business, doing my own personal due diligence. And it's an extraordinary business. In particular, the business model of SendGrid, where the 53,000 paying customers, 99% of those customers were never talked to by a SendGrid employee before they put their credit card down and became a customer. And so for me, having been in enterprise software for 22 years now, where the more traditional go-to-market motion, the sales and marketing motion is, a brilliant product and technology team solves a problem, writes some code, builds a solution, and then you go hire a giant enterprise sales force. You do 4-legged sales calls with a sales engineer and a salesperson, and there's 6 to 12-month sales cycles. You jump through hoops with legal and security, and you're literally asking them to find a needle in the haystack of, can I find a company that has the exact problem that I'm solving and has it prioritized and has budget for it and wants to tackle this right now? It's just, it's very difficult. It's a push model. The thing that I love about SendGrid's business is it's a pull model. The customers come to us. We certainly do a lot of marketing to make sure people are aware of the kind of problem we solve. But when they have that problem, they just go and search on the internet. They do Google searches. They talk to fellow developers or marketers and say, hey, what are you guys using to solve this problem? And increasingly, the answer they'll hear is SendGrid, and then those customers come to us. So we are just crazy efficient in the way we acquire customers. And as an analytical guy, that business model is unbelievable. It's the reason that SendGrid has been able to have quarters of being cash flow positive behind us as a SaaS company, which is very unusual. So that was the reason I fell in love with the company, because of the business. That's why I joined. I would tell you that that was the necessary but not sufficient reason for me to join. Was it a great business? The sufficiency was all about the culture and the values that exist in the company and that are reflected in the people. We have a value system that underpins our culture that we call the 4 H's: happy, hungry, humble, and honest. And each of those 4 H's just deeply resonated with me. And I was like, these are my people. These are the kind of people I want to hang out with. These are the kind of people I want to go build a great company with for the long term. And so that's really those are the 2 reasons I joined the company.
Now, on your website, it says that you're 50,000 paying customers, send 35 billion emails a month. I just did some quick math on my phone, and that's about 673,000 emails per company. So you guys work with some pretty large clients.
We do. We have an incredible range, Jonah, of customers that we serve, and so it does really end up being fairly polarized, where we've got probably a small number, 1,000 or 2,000 really large senders. I mean, if you look on our website, folks will see brands like Uber and Spotify or Pandora. You'll see Airbnb. So we work eBay. We work with some giant brands that have huge user bases that they are communicating with.
You're probably sending tens of thousands of emails just for Uber every day.
I am not to disclose their specific numbers, but without question, we are sending a lot of volume of emails for them on a daily basis, no doubt. But we also then have, remember, of the 50,000+ customers, that's only 1,000 or 2,000 of them. Right. We have a very long tail of 49,000 other little companies that do actually tend to be much smaller businesses. So we have a free trial. We've got a plan that starts at $10 a month. A couple lattes, and you can use SendGrid. It's a very very affordable system to get on board, and that's why we have those tens of thousands of customers who really are oftentimes startups. They're developers building new applications. They're marketers at smaller companies that are still trying to figure out exactly how their product market fit's going to work. And SendGrid just provides them a super easy to use and a very affordable platform to solve this very important business problem, which is how do I communicate with my users and engage them.
I think the first time I actually heard the SendGrid name was when you guys used to do advertising on Jason Calacanis's This Week in Startups podcast. That sound familiar?
Yeah. I do. I know the name. I know the podcast, but I haven't. I don't know if we still do that, but it's probably something we should. It sounds like it reached the right people, so that's good.
Certainly did. Yeah, he's got a great audience of founders and startup people. In terms of marketing and your growth strategy and how you guys have been able to bring on these 52,000 companies, what is that marketing strategy? How are you guys getting the word out there?
Always need to do more. I think it is one is being very focused on the persona. So I'm sure like lots of startups out there listening here, very focused on understanding the user of our software. And so the persona for our API service is the developer. For the marketing, email marketing tool, it's a marketer, and oftentimes a multi-hatted marketer that's responsible for a bunch of marketing activities in a smaller company. We got to go to where they are. And so, if you think about the developer side, I think I mentioned we spent a lot of time with accelerators, incubators, VC portfolio companies, to find those emerging companies that are doing great. We spent a lot of time at all the way down to the developer, individual developer. We go to hackathons and show up at the right, on the right publications and websites that they're going to be trafficking in. For the marketer, that's a whole new area for us. And candidly, I think we have a lot of work to do to establish a brand recognition of us being a natural purveyor of that kind of a solution. I think people, when they think about email marketing, do think more about companies like MailChimp and Constant Contact and others, and so we're just beginning that brand building effort. So you'll start to hear, SendGrid's been doing advertising on, NPR radio. We've got billboards here up and down the 101 freeway. We're starting to do some more aggressive marketing there, but we're trying to get to the places where we think those personas live and make sure that they know that SendGrid's got a really great, simple, easy-to-use solution that's crazy affordable.
Yeah, certainly developers and marketers probably tend to hang out at different places and different types of events. So
yeah, exactly, which complicates the job of our marketing team. But they've been very disciplined about making sure we've got good coverage in both.
So talk to us about your hiring. Like I said in the intro, the company was started in Colorado. So your main office, your headquarters is in Denver. We have about 300 people. Then you have a couple other offices in California, then a new one in London. Are you guys actively recruiting? I would assume you probably are. And what are the types of positions that are the hardest to hire for, in your opinion?
Yeah, without question, we are growing quickly, and so as a result, we need more and more great teammates here at SendGrid. We call them gridders. We need more gridders, and we need them in just about every function. I think if you were to go look on our careers page, we probably have 50 plus open recs right now. So we are absolutely always hiring in all of our sites. The functions where we're most eager to hire right now, I'm sure this will not be news to anybody or surprising, is in engineering. And it's always difficult to find great engineers. It's a competitive market. The thing that is, I think, both very difficult for us and I hope is a potential asset for us is our focus on culture and values. And so we have turned away a lot of extraordinarily talented engineers who did not reflect in our assessments of the interview our 4H values. That humble H really matters to us. A lot of great engineers know that they are great engineers, and that can show up in a way that we don't think would fit in particularly well with our culture. we're looking for those great engineers who are incredibly gifted at problem solving, at writing code, and being innovative, who also want to be part of a team and want to be part of who think, as we like to describe it as, who think in we, not I. The use of pronoun really matters, and that remains, I would say, our biggest hiring challenge. So if there are any folks out there listening that match that criteria, boy, please drop us a line. We'd love to talk to you.
In terms of your salespeople, you typically hire from what types of companies? Like what kind of a background or resume would you love to see from an incoming salesperson?
In sales, because of our what I would call an inbound model or a self-service model, the vast majority of our business comes in where the customer is actually literally doing their own research on the site, reading our docs, trying out our API or doing a trial, and then putting a credit card down. So the vast majority comes in without ever talking to a salesperson. So we have a very small sales team relative to the size of the company. It's less than 20 people. The profile tends to be is an inside sales team, and they are, I think as in most places it varies based on the size of the company that they are selling to, but in general we're looking for people who are world class at inside sales, who are great at being able to sell over the phone, over the web, virtual demos and that kind of stuff. So people that have experience in that model and are used to that model are great candidates for us.
So when I think, Stripe is similar to you guys, obviously they're in the payment space, but they spent most of their early years going after the development community. That's who was integrating Stripe into websites. And you guys are essentially going after the exact type of community. Have you guys looked at what Stripe did and in ways copied it when appropriate?
Yeah, there are a lot of folks. I'm a big believer. Our humble H is, go and learn from people that have gone down this path before you, and learn from them, study, and take the best of what they have done. There are a number of companies that we look to for inspiration. Stripe is one of them for sure. Twilio is another. Atlassian and HubSpot. These are all companies that have done an incredible job either serving the developer in the instance of those first three. Stripe, Atlassian, Twilio. All those guys had a very strong base of customers that they built with developers. And we do study them and take lessons learned. HubSpot, more on the marketer side, have built an incredible, and MailChimp have built incredible businesses, great flywheels based on serving that particular persona. And we do look a lot at what are those folks doing, how have they been so successful, and are there things that we can learn from that?
In terms of fundraising, now you've mentioned that you guys are now kind of cash flow break even, which is phenomenal for a SaaS company. I mean, granted, you've been around for, I guess it's 8 years.
Yeah.
You guys have raised a bunch of money. You've done a couple small acquisitions. When you think about, growth versus profit, I mean, what are the conversations that you have with your other executives and your board about growth versus profit?
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion on that topic these days, and the markets and investor community are a little fickle on this. And when I first joined the company 3 years ago, it was all about growth all the time, and then there was a bit of a correction and pullback. I would say about a year and a half ago, that was about managed growth, and it was about a blend of growth and profitability. I don't know if Joan, if you or your listeners have spent a lot of time with this Rule of 40 construct of adding the percentage growth rate year over year to some proxy of profitability on a percentage basis, and the combination of those two being plus or minus around the 40 range is
right,
an ideal sweet spot. And so there's a lot of conversation about that, although I'll tell you, in recent weeks and months, it feels like the pendulum is swinging back towards that focus about all growth all the time. I'm a deep believer in building companies for the long haul. I do believe we have a special company here that can be built to last. And the way that I believe we should do that is with that managed growth orientation. I love the Rule of 40 construct. It doesn't have to apply perfectly to everybody in every situation, but I think it's quite a useful guide for us. And so we do think about, okay, if we're going to be growing faster than 40%, maybe you can lose a little money. If you're going to be growing less than 40%, you better be making some money. My view is, and as evidenced in our numbers, I believe that we should be a break-even or profitable business. I think it drives a discipline about prioritization and what you should focus on. Even though we could actually lose money based on the Rule of 40 construct, we are growing faster than that. I don't want to. I actually want to have the discipline of we are going to grow as fast as we can, while having a business that is profitable, and that's just the way we think about things. So I like that notion. I want to grow absolutely as fast as we possibly can, but I want us to make money.
What are the two things that stress you out the most?
They tend to orient to all the people side, because I'm just a big believer that, particularly in software-driven businesses, it is at the end of the day all about the people. I don't believe we've been blessed, and I knock on wood, an extraordinary business model and markets that we operate in. I don't worry about those nearly as much. That's not what we are going to screw up. What we could screw up are things on the people side. And so the things I worry about are how are we going to scale the culture that we have? With just shy of 400 employees, it's a lot easier to have a very tight and deeply knit company around these core values when you're 40 people versus when you're at 400. How's it going to be when we're at 2 times that size? And how do we make sure the company scales? So we spend a lot of time thinking about that. We're very intentional about that, and we invest a lot in it. But I worry about that, because if you don't get that right, it is really easy to lose your culture really fast, especially when you're growing as fast as we are, when you're hiring as many people as we are. Small deviations in your culture, the tyranny of incrementalism, because people hire in their own image. So if you deviate a little bit with one hire, 6 months later, that person is going to hire somebody else who deviates a little bit more. And 18 months from now, you have a company filled with folks that don't reflect your values and your culture. And so I stress out a ton about that, about scaling culture, and as a result, recruiting and talent acquisition. How do we get the most people in the door to help us go, really capitalize on all these ridiculous opportunities in front of us that reflect our values? And I think those are the two biggest issues that keep me up at night right now.
So it sounds like you guys certainly put a emphasis on bringing in the right people. What tips do you have for us other entrepreneurs on how to retain those people and make them feel appreciated? I mean, other than giving them more money, which is always nice, or stock. What other ways have you guys found to retain the right people?
Well, I would say a couple things. So one, on bringing them in, I feel very strongly that startups do this wrong a lot of the times. You have to have a mentality and culture at your company that recruiting is a privilege, not an obligation. That you only put your absolute star performers, your best employees, in front of candidates. That should be a small number. It should not be everyone in the company should not be allowed to recruit. So I feel very strongly about the front end of the process and people that are really good, both talent and culture fit, being the face of your company to candidates. I see all too often in a startup environment where you're running hard and fast, that people look at it as, oh gosh, I got to do all my day job and I got to go recruiting. My strong belief is I would rather slide a project back a month but make sure that we're doing recruiting right, because that's the long-term answer. Once you get them aboard, I think the only way that culture really sticks, it just can't be signs up on your wall. So we do a number of things. One, every new employee orientation class has a 45 to an hour minute section where I come in and talk about where I meet with all the new employees, and I spend almost all of that conversation talking about the importance of culture and how their role and responsibility in sustaining and growing that culture. We do things like we have what we call our 4H awards. So they are peer nominated, so it's not a top-down thing, but their fellow teammates, their fellow gridders, nominate people and say, hey, I think this person really reflects our core values. And they do, and what's really cool is they do video submissions of their nominations. And so at our monthly and quarterly all-hands meetings, we get the entire company together. We play these videos, and there's just nothing more cool than seeing a bunch of your teammates, talking on these giant 30-foot screens, talking about how awesome their teammates are to work with and how they appreciate that they actually reflect our values. And so I think you just have to be really tactical and intentional about the way that you signal to the company that we're walking the walk as much as we are talking the talk when it comes to culture.
How did you guys settle on London for your first international office?
I think it's a fairly common play, I think, for a lot of companies that are expanding outside of the U.S. They go to the U.K. Market because it's the same language. It's a great launching point into the EMEA market, and rule of laws are fairly similar. So I think I guess I would say it is our second largest geo. SendGrid remarkably, while prior to that London opening, didn't have any boots on the ground in any country outside of the United States, and yet we derive 40% of our revenue actually comes from outside of the U.S. We have customers in over 100 countries around the world. They just find us on the internet, right? And that's the power of when the internet is your distribution channel. You just get an extraordinary reach. So when we thought about where to go, frankly, part of it was just easy of looking at where your biggest next countries in terms of revenue or customer count beyond the U.S. and the UK was at the top of that list.
What the founders of SendGrid also involved with the company?
They are. God bless them. They have built an extraordinary company. All three of them, Isaac, Tim, and Jose, are still with us. They're three developers. They're still writing code for SendGrid every day. 8 years later, they're awesome. They're great guys. They are. You talk about our value system. They live that humble H. They're the personification of it. And they're awesome developers, and so they're working on problems for us every day, trying to keep making us better.
Well, I'm Googling most successful TechStars companies. I would assume you guys are probably in that list, right?
I would hope that we would be among that group. There's some great companies. TechStars is an extraordinary organization. David Cohen is a board member, or has been a board member of SendGrid for many years, and who kind of started and runs TechStars. And they have been so unbelievably supportive of SendGrid throughout all the years. We work a ton with them in terms of doing TechStars mentoring. So we have a lot of SendGridders that show up at various classes or and mentorship days around the country and around the globe. And yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of some of the others. There's a new video that they're coming out with that I just got an early look at. That's just awesome. It's super powerful. I mean, the companies are like DigitalOcean and ClassPass and SendGrid and just some really great companies in that. Sphero's another. A lot of great companies that really benefited from that program.
There's a few on here that I have booked for my podcast over the next couple of weeks. I think ClassPass is coming on. I think PillPack is coming on. Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
there's
that's awesome.
definitely a handful of companies in here that are on their way to billion-dollar valuations. I mean, how much do you
The
guys
other
think?
thing I would say about TechStars that is amazing is they have this tagline of give first, and that mentality that permeates that organization, I think helped permeate and shape SendGrid's culture and values as well. That give first shows up in that humble H, and I think they've done an incredible job of that of the TechStars culture helping shape a little bit of the companies that go through there.
You guys have some awesome investors like Bessemer, Bain Capital, Foundry. I mean, those are just some names that that are popping up on Crunchbase. What's your
Yep.
favorite? What's your favorite thing about working with VCs?
I love, it's funny. There are a lot of folks that will tease and give the VCs grief. I love them. I love mine in particular, but I think they have a visibility to the market and an experience base that is unbelievably important to a CEO and a leadership team trying to build a company. If you think about what you're trying to do as a entrepreneur or startup guy, and the odds are so ridiculously stacked against us, right? And yet we're crazy enough that we want to solve this problem, we want to go build this company, that we're going to run through that wall anyways. Having great VCs on your team that can help with this pattern recognition, because look, there's no problem that you're seeing that hundreds of other companies before you haven't seen already. And the great thing about having VCs that you're deeply involved with, who are really engaged with your board and your management team, they've seen the movie before because they've seen it across 100 companies. So us operating guys that have been in 5 companies in our career. Well, you've seen 3 or 4 or 5 different models. These guys have seen dozens and dozens and dozens, and their ability to pattern match and recognize, this reminds me of this other instance when, is extraordinary. And that's, I would say, is one of the greatest things that I get from our VCs, who are just great advisors. They're just super smart business leaders, and they can draw on a wealth of experience that structurally operators and entrepreneurs like us and those listening don't have. You can't have that. It's not part of your job.
I've had a couple of requests from listeners that they would like me to start bringing on some VCs. So I've booked a few for next month in August, because I think there is value in getting the different perspective. And like you said, the investors see hundreds of pitch decks a year, and then they whittle it down to the top 8 to 12 and make investments. And they just, across their portfolio, they see so many different business models and board meetings and everything else. They can just bring a lot of information to the show. So I'm excited to start talking to some of them.
Well, and I tell you, I love all 3 of ours. I hope you get a chance to talk with some of them. They're great. Each
awesome.
of those, Foundry, Bessemer, and Bain Capital Ventures, all 3 of them are just awesome.
Yeah, those are certainly 3 of the top firms out there. Anything we skipped over that before we wrap up here you want a chance to mention?
No, nothing that leaps to mind. I think we're for all the startups that are listening, we'd be happy to help in any way we can. SendGrid, we literally have T-shirts printed that says SendGrid hearts startups because as you would imagine, given our business model that I described, like, startups have been the lifeblood of the company, and some startups end up becoming giant customers of ours. Uber signed up with us when they were a startup, and that's just a big part of our model and our business. It's also just a way for us to give back. We've been very fortunate and blessed and having a great product market fit, and things have gone our way in a lot of ways. And if there's anything we can do to help startups that are out there, we'd be happy to do it. We really do. We think we offer some really great services for developers and marketers alike that are crazy inexpensive, and we're sensitive to startups being on tight budgets. So hopefully we can help some folks there too. But anything we can do to help the listeners out there, we're willing to do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Samir. Really appreciate your time. I remember listening to you on a podcast, and you said, if anybody wants to chat, just email me and I'll get back to you. And I emailed you, and you got back to me pretty quickly. So you're obviously a very reachable person, and we all appreciate stuff like that.
Oh, it's awesome. You bet, Jonah. Thank you so much for having us on, and best wishes and good luck to all the other startups and entrepreneurs out there. Keep battling and living the dream.
Thanks, Samir. Really appreciate it, man. I'll talk to you soon.
You bet. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.